This is Jesse Bernhardt. I play for the Chesapeake Bayhawks in the MLL, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
This is Jake Bernhardt with the Whipsnakes and the PLL, and you're listening to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
Tom Schreiber. Sidearm whip. Scars. Now in front. Fidel scores. Ball Rabel. Splits two and scores.
Kylie Ohlmiller showing off those shifty skills.
Kelly, not shy. Bounces one home. What a start.
Welcome to Pro Lacrosse Talk, the voice of Pro Lacrosse. I'm Hutton, he's Adam, and together we're bringing you interviews with your favorite players and coaches, as well as news from all 4 professional lacrosse leagues. So I'm here with brothers Jake and Jesse Bernhardt. Both are graduates of the University of Maryland and currently play professional lacrosse, with Jake playing for the Whipsnakes in the PLL and Jesse playing for the Bayhawks in the MLL. Jake and Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so Jake, you were a two-way midi for Maryland from 2009 to 2011, and following an injury in 2012, you finished your career with the Terps in 2013. Jesse, you played with him. You were a force at LSM and played from 2010 to 2013. Both of you were part of a Terps team that had a lot of success in the tournament, despite failing to win it all. How did playing at Maryland prepare you guys for your time in the pros, and how has the adversity you faced fueled your drive as a professional athlete?
You know, I think playing at Maryland's was a special opportunity. I think just the way that we handled everything as a program really helped us segue into the pro game pretty quickly, with just nuances and details that, Coach Cottle, when he was there, and coached me for 2 years, and then having the opportunity to play for Coach Tillman, things didn't really change too much from one coach to the other, but I think that it just helped a lot of us. There's so many of us playing in professional lacrosse, regardless of what league, and it kind of just shows to, everything the coaches at the University of Maryland did to help us prepare for the professional game.
Yeah, I think for me, echoing what Jake said, I think just in terms of, kind of the culture and things that were instilled upon us, obviously playing professional, we don't do that on a daily basis. So just understanding how to operate in the sense of, being a professional and carrying yourself and, taking pride in the training and in the practice process, being self-motivated on our own. I think having that ingrained in us, playing at Maryland to help transition, again, to Major League Lacrosse or professional lacrosse, just kind of being able to, manage that on our own time now. And listen, as Jake mentioned, we probably have the most guys, playing at some form of whatever league it is professionally. And, at some point in time, a lot of us were on the same team or teams at Maryland. And I think having competition of that caliber day in and day out, makes that transition. Not saying that you can't play at a lower level or, maybe a more, a less successful team, but just having practice be so competitive and the teams we play every week be so competitive, I think it makes the transition over to the next level a little bit more seamless.
Definitely. I mean, like you said, there's so many players from Maryland, playing at the professional level. It's really been a great feeder for the professional game. And your younger brother, Jared, is heading into his senior season with the Terps. He was a tour-time finalist last year and a huge part of the Terps team. And he even got to wear the coveted number 1 jersey. And then you guys played against him as members of Team USA during a scrimmage. And, Jesse, you currently are an assistant with Maryland. But how has it been watching, your younger brother kind of follow in your guys' footsteps? And will we see another Bernhardt, turn pro upon graduation next year?
I don't know if I can answer that or whatever right now, but, I'm sure at some point he will be a pro. It's just a matter of when. If there's one person, in this world right now, I'm his biggest fan. I can't wait to watch him play every week after, when I'm done coaching at the University of Vermont, and just staying in touch with him during the season and just making sure if he has questions and whatnot. I've had an opportunity of coaching him in high school too, so the coaching hasn't really stopped once he left the high school level, and just staying in touch with him. And then, I feel like he's a tremendous player, and he's just really exciting to watch. And that's me being his brother, but maybe that's biased, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think for me, like you said, a little unique perspective. Obviously, I'll be coaching him. This would be my 3rd year at school, so I'll have spent 3 of his 4 years with him there. For me, it's awesome. Again, obviously, Jake and I were, in college a lot of the time. He was kind of going through high school, so we weren't always around to again, watch his football games or lacrosse games in the spring. So now having the opportunity to kind of see him on a daily basis, again, see him practice every day, obviously, be there, for the games and, all of those times, definitely makes it a very cool and unique experience. I think in terms of, kind of carrying on the Terp tradition, obviously, like Jake said, just, proud of him. He had a lot of options coming out of high school, pretty much could have probably gone wherever he wanted. And, I'd say we probably had some say in that, but, in the end, we, wanted to do what was best for him or what he wanted. And obviously very happy that he chose to go to Maryland. So, again, I think his play on the field speaks for itself. He works tremendously hard. He does a great job. I think the Tewaaraton finalist and all those things. But he's going to be a 2-time captain by the time he leaves. So those are the things that I think are very cool. Again, kind of looking at him as a brother rather than a coach. And then as a player, we had the unique opportunity to play versus him with Team USA in that scrimmage. I'm not sure how many times that's really happened. For a set of brothers to get an opportunity to do that, and there's a few times. I think maybe once or twice we got paired up a little bit, and he's not shy. I mean, we've kind of been competing all of our lives. Again, he's a good player, so you gotta be ready for him. It's not he's not as little as he used to be anymore. So just something that we had to get a little prepared for. But it was fun. Again, very cool experience. Have mom and dad there for that stuff. It's just something that, again, a lot of people will never get a chance to have that experience.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think you mentioned his strong work ethic, and I think you can see that in all three of your guys' playing careers. And kind of segue into some more family. Your father, Jim Bernhardt, really instilled that into you guys. His motto was pride, poise, and commitment, and he recently passed away this summer. So I want to send my condolences to you guys and your family. But I want to just talk a little bit about him because, he was a two-sport athlete, played football and lacrosse his whole life, assistant coach for football at Hofstra, Brown, Central Florida, Penn State, and eventually the Houston Texans. And then until his passing, he was assistant coaching with the Bayhawks with you, Jesse. So how has your father impacted you guys both athletically and in life, and what are some of your favorite memories spent with your father?
Well, I appreciate, what you had to say about Dad. And, I think unfortunately, this podcast is probably too short for us to try to put into words what our dad meant to us. But, he was just a very firm believer in that if you put the work in, that, good things, will happen. And, as brothers, we had each other growing up, and it was fun. It was, competitive. And, there was a lot of opportunities to learn from just being around my dad because of what he did and being a coach. I mean, that was probably, for me, my favorite time to be with him was go with him to work. Whether that was high school and as we got older, more into the college, football scene, and just being in the locker room and being able to see, the right things to do and the wrong things to do. I mean, that was really, the opportunity that we had as young athletes to find players that we would look up to, and whether they were, pro caliber guys or even guys in high school. And I think that we learned a lot of life lessons from just being in those situations, and also being around some really good coaches too, our whole life, and just something that I know I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life, and things that I carry with me to this day and will carry with me for the rest of my life in terms of being a person, but also as a coach. And we were just very fortunate to have our dad as our father.
Yeah, for me, I think athletically, you kind of hit on some things about Dad. I mean, Dad was, our dad was, he actually didn't start playing lacrosse until his junior year of high school. He was actually a big baseball guy growing up, legendary back in Long Beach, back in his days for being a great baseball player. And he eventually had an old coach, the guy who actually was his big mentor that got him into coaching, that had him start playing lacrosse. And again, he had a really late start with it. So And like you said, a football guy as well. So, he was the first one to really introduce us to it. I think, growing up, most of our younger, life spent down here in Florida, not as privy to maybe some of the other, areas in the country with the coaching. So he was kind of the guy who was able to introduce us to that. And, just athletically, again, to grow up in a household where, again, your dad has been a football coach longer than he's been our dad. He very knowledgeable in all that stuff, but not in a sense, he rarely ever coached us. He wasn't one of those guys, whether he was busy and just, or just chose not to, kind of be more of a in the shadows guy. Again, grew up playing, spent his whole life coaching. So, just the fortunate, ability for us to kind of be around that. Like Jake said, I think, again, for me, I would agree, best memories, just, again, spending time, going to the locker room, again, going to work. If it was up to me, I'd have everybody grow up around the locker room. Again, you learn so much stuff in that kind of environment, not only about sports, but just many other things that I know, like looking back now, you wouldn't have thought then, but that pay dividends now. So definitely some of the, the better memories in that sense. And again, fortunate for me, his dad kind of wrapped up his football stuff, and, he had stepped away from living in Houston. He still was actively doing some work for the Texans, up until even this summer, just kind of satellite remotely. But it just gave him the ability to be back at home in Florida. So he was still staying busy with that stuff, but didn't have him, be on staff with the Bayhawks. He loved lacrosse, and again, he was a very smart guy in terms of what he did for the football world and coaching, and he was always up and looking for a challenge, and he was trying, taking a lot of his football background and kind of spinning it into how it could help lacrosse, and that's why he kind of jumped on board with the Bayhawks. Cottle and him have known each other for a while, so having him be on staff, and again, just kind of being able to see him, every weekend, come up to Annapolis or just on the road and stuff like that. Again, just a very cool experience to, just have him be there on the sidelines and stuff like that. Again, that's just not everybody gets a chance to do. And again, for guys that didn't grow up in the Maryland area, you get to see your family, during the holidays and the breaks and things like that. And then, obviously, like Jake said, coaching now, living in Vermont and Maryland and stuff, you don't get to see, your family, as often as probably one would like. So again, to have the opportunity to, at least during the summer, pretty much every weekend to get a chance to just hang out with them and stuff was definitely very cool. So, we try to carry that, like Dad always said, football mentality in the lacrosse world.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the sense of, being big meets or hacks or anything like that, but football guys are known for the work ethic and working hard and toughness and mentality and things and approach. And again, we've kind of tried to carry that over into our, playing careers, in college, and then now in the pros, and then obviously our coaching careers. And I think that's, why we've been fortunate to kind of get to where we've gotten by kind of following that a little bit. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. He definitely left, a tremendous legacy. And my uncle and actually Adam's father-in-law, Jerry Jackson, played with him a little bit at his time in Towson. And he had nothing but great things to say about your dad. It's great that you guys are, kind of honoring him even after his death. So I think that's great. Going off of that a little bit, you guys mentioned, growing up in Florida, which isn't really a traditional lacrosse hotbed, when compared to Maryland or Long Island. How was it playing lacrosse in Florida, and how has it been different now going back and seeing how the youth game has really grown down there?
Yeah, it's spread like wildfire down here, and it's even back then when we were playing, I think it was big, and there was a lot of kids playing. There just wasn't a lot of good coaching to keep up with the amount of kids wanting to play, and it's not much different than it is now. It's even just multiplied even bigger at this point with the amount of kids playing down here. But going back to when we were growing up, we didn't really have lacrosse. There weren't a lot of leagues or anything, if any, around here. And the only thing that we really did, Dad came home one day and kind of just told us he was signing us up for a lacrosse camp, and it just happened to be Coach Cottle was coming down when he was at Loyola, to run a camp at a park that wasn't too far from our house. And we ended up going, and we went for like 3 days or so, and that was basically like our lacrosse season. And then we put our sticks down for pretty much a whole year, and Coach Cottle came back in a following year, and we went to that camp again. And eventually, he went to the University of Maryland, and he kept coming down. And then at that point, there were some leagues that started popping up, and that's how we had gotten involved more into lacrosse at that point. But it's also kind of cool how it became full circle, where Coach Cottle ended up recruiting both of us to Maryland. So it was a pretty cool experience when it comes to that. But as far as the growth down here, I mean, it's tremendous, and you're starting to see more and more kids kind of make their way to colleges, and see Florida on these rosters more so than maybe when just Jesse and I were growing up. And it's nice to see that, and we hope that it continues to go that way, because there are some really good players and good athletes. Again, it's just one of the things. It's just trying to get more coaching down here and get these guys prepared for the next level, so it's maybe not as much of a giant hurdle once they get there to catch up maybe to the lacrosse IQ part of it. But there are some really good players that are playing on some good club teams, and you can see that when Jesse and I go to recruit these events, that the state of Florida has definitely taken steps forward in terms of talent. Now it's just a matter of having guys produce and have great careers, and also have great experiences too at the college level.
We were the beneficiaries, and obviously can thank our parents for having 3 boys in the family. Because like Jake said, at times, whether it was competition or just availability to have the opportunity to play wasn't always there. And again, our dad always used to tell us, obviously for Jake and I, just being closer in age, I just happened to go and start playing defense, and Jake, kind of took the route of being a midfielder and such. But, we were 2 of the better, players in the area, and if not the state. And, we could just go to the field ourselves together and get as good of working against each other as, we were going to get, playing against some other people. And then obviously, I wouldn't say we would take full credit for Jared, but I think having the opportunity, to kind of be around us as we went through the process and just, be much more involved in lacrosse, I think it just gave him a little bit more of an early exposure to it. And, by that time, as he was growing up, I think, the tide had started to turn a little bit. But, I mean, I still remember in high school and even through middle school, lacrosse was existent down here, but it just wasn't what it is now. And, if you played lacrosse, you essentially were, you just kind of rolled with a different crew. Football players, spring football is a big thing down here. So pretty much the whole month of May is dedicated to spring football. And if you played football, a lot of guys, baseball is another big sport down here in the South and in Florida. So a lot of football guys played baseball. And then we also have high school weightlifting in Florida. So guys who didn't do baseball either were on the weightlifting team or they ran track to help them with football. And that's kind of what it was. And guys who played lacrosse were their own unique group. And Jake and I were really the first, I felt like, guys that broke that mold of we were football lacrosse guys. And I don't think there really were, that was such a thing. Like, what do you mean you guys are, yeah, we play football lacrosse. Like, that was a new thing for the football coaches. And I think, as we kind of progressed through, we were able to pull some friends along to be like, hey, you should, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, come play lacrosse. Like, it's physical, it's fast. I mean, you got to get tired of running around a track, every day. And, so come out and do that. And, as Jake was the coach at Lake Brantley High School for a brief stint where we went, and you could just see the change in getting more athletes to that were football lacrosse guys rather than just guys who played lacrosse. And I think that's one of the best things that Florida provides is the athlete aspect to it. You hear on the recruiting circuit, you can get good athletes down there. And I think that's just something that's kind of really been a big shift, and in some ways maybe kind of taking steps back because a lot of kids do just play lacrosse now. But I think again, just kind of being able to open eyes and see that, you know, lacrosse is a new thing, and it's not it's not infringing on anybody's football season or anything like that, and just to kind of make the crossover a little bit. You know, I think those were big steps that, again, really weren't, you know, those things weren't really happening before we kind of started getting involved with it. So it's definitely been a shift in a good way. You know, we always pull for the guys coming from Florida, you know, to hopefully represent. I think we can do better with that in some ways, but it's definitely moving in the right direction in terms of the amount of kids we're playing.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. You know, that you guys are witnessing the game grow, and you kind of talked about how you guys it was kind of unique for you to be football and lacrosse guys, but I think, you know, like you mentioned, the physicality, but also just the football IQ translates well with the lacrosse IQ because it is a very strategic game. So how has being two sport athletes, you know, in high school kind of helped you guys, not just in your college career, but, you know, now in the pros?
I'm pretty passionate about the whole multi-sport thing. Strongly disagree that kids play one sport. You know, and obviously I'm not going to tell a kid or his parents that they need, you know, to play football or, you know, whatever, but I feel like kids should play other sports, whether it's soccer in the fall or something. The one thing that I think that Jesse and I and Jared all benefited from was the opportunity to kind of like put our stick down and move on to something new and keep our excitement for the game alive, when nowadays you see kids that are just continuing to just play lacrosse over and over and over, and then they get to college and it's not fun anymore and it's a business. Mm-hmm. Being multi-sport guys, I think, you know, we just had so much fun with whatever sport we were involved in, and we put as much time into, you know, that sport that we were involved in at that time. And then when that season was over, we were even more excited to get going with the next season of whatever sport that was. So I just think that being a multi-sport guy mentally gave us an opportunity to stay fresh, just always be ready to play. And then just not to mention, you know, just as Jesse had talked about, the way just football and lacrosse, you know, obviously there are different nuances to the game, and, you know, football is more of a stop and go game and lacrosse is more of a, you know, free flowing game, but there are similarities when it comes to the physicality and just going back to, you know, the saying of the football mentality in the lacrosse world of, you know, not really backing down from, you know, physical play, and just having the athletic ability to go, and especially where we came from playing in Florida, you know, Jesse and I, we play against guys who are playing in the NFL right now, you know, and that's something that, you know, I'm always like, I know I didn't make it to the NFL or anything, but I'm like proud to say, like, I played against that guy in high school football, or, you know, Jared played against that guy, and, you know, he's, you know, either in the NFL or he's, you know, top college football player. And, you know, I actually put a tweet out the other day, and this goes back to the whole Jared thing. Some of the best times for me was being able to go watch Jared play football, because Jared was probably one of the best football players to come out of Lake Burnley High School ever. And not to mention just our high school, when he was a senior, he was 8A first team all-state athlete, which is the biggest classification in football. And I'm not going to say it's the best, because there are good teams in every class, but I mean, we're talking guys that are playing at Alabama now. Jared was in first team all-state as an athlete. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, that's just like, I don't think people maybe put that in perspective. Again, I'm just very proud of, you know, seeing that and what he was able to accomplish. And
no, definitely.
You know, I don't want to get too off track here.
No, it makes a lot of sense, because the game is headed in the direction where, you know, you guys are being more respected as athletes. It's not that there weren't athletes in the sport prior, but now that it's going more mainstream, you have guys like yourselves, or, you know, look like a Jared Newman, who played basketball up until his senior year of high school, and then, you know, picked up a stick, and now he's playing the PLL. It's because athletes can find a way into this game, and even though the sport isn't as mainstream as some of the more popular sports, you guys are still athletes. So I think that's definitely an important point. Going with you, Jesse, I I mean, you're entering your 7th season now playing for the Bayhawks, not too far from where you played and now coach. How's it been playing for the Bayhawks organization, your whole career and in front of a local Maryland crowd, especially with, some of your former teammates like Nico Amato? How's that been?
Yeah, I've been able to have the good fortune of, like you said, being able to play for and represent the same team for my whole career, which, is definitely, a unique thing. And even amongst, obviously the transition with the different leagues and, teams and things like that. And again, as Jake alluded to earlier, the opportunity I played for Coach Cottle my freshman year, and to have him, for the most part, be the coach for the Bayhawks for my entire tenure so far. There was a preseason where Brian Reese took over, but Coach was still obviously very involved in the front office and always around. It's very cool. It's one of those things where, again, I think, the Bayhawks do a great job. Again, you get that definitely community, feel, so that you get a group of people to play for, which I think is always, nice. And again, get to be around a lot of people, who I enjoy just, again, their presence and spending time with them. And I live in Annapolis. I literally live probably a half mile from the stadium, so it's all right there for me. But to have the opportunity to get to see Coach Cottle and talk to him on a daily basis, again, he's had such a tremendous impact on my life. So just again, spending time with him has been great. And again, we got a lot of Maryland guys on the squad, from guys who I played with to guys who I coached as a volunteer there for a year. Like you said, being teammates with Nico Amato, Brian Phipps, younger guys like Heacock and Nick Manis and Isaiah Davis-Allen, and those guys. It's again, it's just a very cool experience, just being able to kind of have that team chemistry, the locker room. Again, that's why, it's something that I'm not ready to give up. And again, having that with guys like that, makes it so much more fun and enjoyable. And, you get a sense of pride playing with those guys. It's not just, an all-star game or anything like that. You already have connections prior. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a cool place to play. And I'm glad I've been able to, spend my 7 years that I didn't even realize was 7 years until you reminded me on the Bayhawks.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you of 7 years. And Jake, you're no stranger to some Maryland alumni yourself, playing for the Whipsnakes. In the PLL's inaugural season, you guys are in the middle of a playoff push. How has it been playing in this new league and traveling from city to city each week with the Whipsnakes?
It's been awesome. I think being able to utilize this sport and take us places that I never would have imagined going to has been just an amazing opportunity. Especially this past season, I've been to a couple of places that I've either spent brief time there or never been, and then just trying to grow the game and get new fans to the game, which is something that I think what the PLL is all about. And I think it's been doing a great job with that. But just being able to play with those guys, as Jesse, I think, mentioned earlier in the podcast, that some of these guys, I had maybe didn't overlap with or play with, or some guys I only played with for like maybe a year, or there's guys I played with my whole career, which makes it, awesome. And then not to mention with, all three of us, Jesse, Jared, and myself, kind of spanning, throughout our Maryland careers and taking up some time there, that either I watched guys play with Jared. It's been awesome with the Maryland connection. Just because I maybe didn't play with them doesn't mean I didn't know those guys prior, but it's just been amazing opportunity, and I look forward to, I know our whole team looks forward to seeing each other every week.
That's great. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll get back into the action. Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the Pro Lacrosse Talk podcast. We've been using Anchor for our podcast since the very start. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place, and better yet, it's free. They allow you to easily record and edit your podcast so it sounds great, and send it out to all the major networks such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. Better yet, they connect you with advertisers so you can start making money from your podcast right away. So if you're interested in starting a podcast, download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, welcome back, guys. So now we're going to go into our 5 and 5 segment. So I'm going to ask 5 questions that are lacrosse related and then 5 that are just related to life in general. Jake, you'll go answer first. Jesse, you can follow up with your answer. But the first question I have is, what is your guys' favorite lacrosse moment when you were at Maryland?
Mine probably is in 2011 when we played at M&T Bank Stadium. We played in the semifinals versus Duke. We had pretty much I felt like the whole state of Maryland was there. But the coolest part about it was prior to the game, and if you've ever been to a Maryland basketball game, they they had the newspapers and they hold it up when they're reading out the other team's roster, and then after every player they yell "sucks," and the whole stadium was going nuts and doing that, and that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had as a player at Maryland.
That's great.
I'll keep it simple. That was the same one I was going to say, and we didn't converse before that question.
No, that's great. I mean, that's funny. And I'm a Ravens fan, so I love the atmosphere of M&T. Like you guys said, there's really no other greater atmosphere for college lacrosse than I think for M&T. So I'm hoping they move the championship back there, in the near future. I know it's been in Philly for a while, but I think it's got to go back to Baltimore at some point. But number 2, I'm going to ask is, who is the funniest teammate on your respective teams, the Whipsnakes and the Bayhawks?
Oh, funniest. I don't know. I think Matt Rambo's pretty funny. He always has just I don't think he sometimes doesn't think before he says things. So I think whatever comes out it just catches people off guard, which is which makes it even funnier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd have to say probably Rambo.
For me, again, these guys are like peanut butter and jelly. Colin Heacock would be the guy for the Bayhawks, and those guys were a tandem in college. But yeah, Colin, like Matt, he just always keeps it very relaxed in the locker room. He is an enormous but very goofy young guy at heart. Again, just huge smile on his face all the time. Again, he gets guys like Lyle Thompson cracking up, which don't always happen very often. So I would definitely have to go with Heacock.
Awesome, that's great. Number 3, what is your guys' current lacrosse setup in terms of shaft, head, and stringing?
Well, I'm an SCX sponsored athlete, so shout out SCX, and I'm using the not yet released STX Stallion Omega head, and I am, as a shaft, I'm using, I don't even know, I think it's a composite shaft that they have, but I'm also toying around with a prototype that I really can't talk about at this time. But I'm an SCX mesh guy, and I got to go back to the double V's when I left college.
So pretty much people should be keeping an eye on your social media in the coming months for any new STX stuff being released.
For sure.
What about you, Jesse?
I'm awful with this stuff, so for all the young listeners, it just shows that you don't need to be a gear guy to be able to catch and throw out there. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not really sure, actually. I think I have to use Warrior now, being in MLL. I believe I use a Warrior Diamond shaft. I don't even know if they make them anymore, but it was the best one that they had. The head, I believe it's a burn, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. And then my stringing, Jake actually has strung my head since I don't know when. He still strings all my heads. I don't let anybody else string a head for me. So however he does it, that's how I like it. High pocket, though, no whip. Jake can probably chime in if there's any more details. But, again, high pocket to get the ball off the ground. Again, no whip. Just got to be able to catch and throw and get it to the guys who get paid to score goals.
I like it. Very old school. All right, number 4. Where has your favorite place to play lacrosse been in your guys' careers?
Oh, man. Actually, this one's easy for me. My favorite place ever to play lacrosse is, well, obviously Bird Stadium, but I love playing Navy Marine Corps Stadium. Obviously playing the PLL and everything. We haven't been there this season or anything, but I've always had great memories there, and for whatever reason, I've always played well there, and I don't know if this be just because of comfortability or whatever, but that's one of my favorite places. And actually, when we were at University of Vermont this year, we played Navy, and the guy I work with, Chris Fifes, we made it a point, like, we really wanted to play at Navy because we wanted to take our team down there and felt like it was, like, we were obligated to take them there and show them what it's like to play in such a historic lacrosse venue. Mm-hmm. So, Navy Marine Corps Stadium.
For me, yeah, kind of like Jake, I'll give a better answer. Again, a Maryland Stadium, Bird Stadium, hands down. But just to give you something different, I'd actually say our high school field, like Maryland High School down here in Florida. I think for a high school, it's an awesome setup. Again, they've turfed it. They're actually just redoing the turf, but again, I think it's a great place to play high school lacrosse. I would love to have a college team come down and play here, but again, that's just a place that, again, as brothers, like, the amount of time like we've spent going there and shooting and things like that, it's kind of just our home field, and I think it's one of those just kind of always have a special place in our heart, and it's a great setup, so I'm going to go with like Brown High School.
Awesome. All right, number 5, last of the lacrosse questions. You got 7 possessions. Jake, you're on offense. Jesse, you're on defense. With your goalie of choice, who wins in the 1v1 matchup and why?
Whoa.
Trash talk's allowed.
Well, I'm definitely going to use the opportunity that I've transitioned from playing offense into playing more D-midi role in the professional level. So my offensive prowess and skills have somewhat diminished maybe from college a little bit, but I'm going to win at least 4 out of the 7. I would love for Nico to be in goal when I was scoring them too. So
I'm going to say, obviously, I would take the match. It would be close, but I think from the amount of years going against each other, I would have a decent scout. And again, my goalie of choice, whoever that may be, would be somebody very confident and comfortable in seeing Jake play lacrosse, and they would have a very good scout and read on him. And I think even if I played poor defense on a few possessions, they would back me up with a save.
All right. You guys took some diplomatic answers to that. I wanted to hear a little bit more brotherly competition, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Jared, definitely 7-0 for me.
Jared, he wouldn't score a goal.
That's funny. All right, guys. Now I have 5 life questions. So these ones are just going to be, off the field stuff. But what's your favorite class at Maryland and why?
Favorite class. We were both criminal justice majors at Maryland, and actually, when I was there, I was a teacher assistant. I was a TA for some of these guys on the team. Actually, Jesse was in the class, but it was called Leadership in Sport, and with Terry Zacher, who she's still there and teaches these guys, and that was a really enjoyable class, and a lot of us took it. It was a smaller class, but just cool ways of learning about different coaches and how they philosophies and different books that we got a chance to read. So I think that was mine.
A lot of these is probably not good to have both of us on here because we probably say a lot of the same answers, but I'll give you a different one. Like Jake said, we were both criminal justice majors, so again, being in the DC area and having one of the better programs in the country, or at least as I was told, you get some awesome professors. And I remember taking a class by a guy, Dr. Gaston, who actually was the warden at Rikers Island for a handful of years. So
oh, wow.
That class was just very cool and interesting. As you can imagine, some classes in college can be very boring, but again, when you get somebody like that up front talking, telling stories and things like that, just very cool.
Then going off of that, what is your guys' favorite things to do when back home in Florida?
Well, we love to go work out. We go train at this place that we've been training at. It's called Davis Training Systems. We go pretty much every morning. We were just there today. We're actually all home together, so it's a good question to ask right now. And then I think, as we'd all probably say, is we all like to go grab sushi when we're home. We have a place, shout out Bay Ridge Sushi. That's always enjoyable to go and get a good meal in.
Yeah, I'll piggyback again. Davis Training Systems, that's definitely a stop one of the first stops when we're home, always grabbing a bite to eat, and then I grew up with a close group of friends down here, so just whenever I get an opportunity to come home, again, just getting a chance to see those guys that I don't get to see very often now is definitely something that I'm always looking to do.
Awesome. And then piggybacking off of that, you mentioned sushi, Jake. What's your preference, cook in, take out, or dine out, and what's your go-to meal?
I guess going back to this whole podcast with just routine and just staying with the work ethic theme, I'm pretty regimented when it comes to my meals and meal prepping during the week, and just making sure that I'm pretty diligent with that. And I think that's obviously helped with our success, and Jesse's the same way. But when I get an opportunity the answer is I mostly eat in. But when I go eat out, when I'm home back in Orlando, I like to go grab sushi. But when I'm in Burlington, Vermont, low-key fire pizza places, the pizza is really good, and there's a bunch of different places that have their own kind of spin to it. So I really like pizza when I'm up in Burlington.
Yeah, for me, definitely eat-at-home guy. I'm not a big fan of I'm not against eating out, but like Jake, I'd much prefer to eat in. Again, kind of control what I'm eating and prepping. So again, with that, I'll give you a breakfast go-to pretty much every morning is 3 to 4 eggs, mix in some kind of veggies, generally some avocado on the side, and a bowl of oatmeal. That's generally the go-to in the morning. And like I said, I live in Annapolis, so my fiance and I are grabbing something to eat. We got a place over in Eastport Kitchen, which is just next to Annapolis, which is our little spot that we always head up.
Okay, my fourth question is then going off of this kind of, what is your favorite activity or hobby to do when you guys aren't playing or coaching lacrosse?
It's kind of hard. We don't really have a lot of free time, so we're always involved with lacrosse somehow. But I think maybe this goes back into the multi-sport thing, but I really enjoy, especially with football season right around the corner. I can't wait to watch football season. And I know, if anything, what I really want to do moving forwards is every year when I have either a bye week or something, goes back to what we would do with our dad and going to training camp and whatnot. I would like to try to go visit a school and a football school and watch them practice and maybe being on meetings if I could. So I like to, if anything, I like to, still stay involved with sports. But if I'm really getting away from sports, I like going to the beach up in Burlington, Vermont. It's actually a lake, but I call it a beach.
Awesome.
Yeah, again, we're not the most interesting guys in the world, obviously. I'd say most recently for me, my thing to do right now is actually it's coming up on 2 months ago now, I got a German Shepherd. So going for walks with my German Shepherd, Dante, is my thing when I'm not coaching, or my thing early in the morning, pretty much every day, just to kind of get out and do something else, is going for a walk with him. So
the cool fact about the dog, though, is he's actually served in the Army.
He was in some sort. He was over in Afghanistan, and he was getting out. So I had the good fortune of adopting him. So he's been with me for 2 months. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great that you're able to give him a home too. I'm actually in the Army Reserves, so I like hearing those stories about the service dogs. I haven't come in contact with one myself, but I know some people that were handlers, and it's nice that you're able to give them a home after. Yeah. All right, final question then to wrap it all up is, what is your guys' favorite social media platform?
I like Instagram better because I like looking at the pictures and stuff, but I'm probably better at Twitter. I don't know why. I don't know what the reasoning is, but maybe hot takes. I don't know.
Well, I liked your Connor Fields tweet from the other day to ESPN. So I thought that was pretty funny when you tweeted at them, and he ended up making the top plays, but I think he should have been a little bit higher, honestly.
Yeah, I think that was, excuse my language, I thought it was bullshit. Listen, I'm going to be a realistic athletics fan, and the one that was number one was the alley-oop that was like between the legs off the backboard, and then the guy caught it and, hammered it. And like that's really athletic. That's really impressive. So like I can see why that's number one. But no offense to baseball, and I'm a baseball fan, but I mean, how many times are you gonna show the same highlight over and over of a guy catching it from diving from the outfield? Wow, Connor Field just, not to mention lefty player, turned the corner, one-handed righty, and hammered it home off the pipe. And and he made a guy fall. Like,
yeah, he made Epple fall over, and Epple's one of the better defenders in the league.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, if that was someone dunking over somebody in basketball, it would be one or two. So it's not much different. That's just my opinion, but that's my take. I think I'm better at Twitter, but I like Instagram more.
Gotcha. What about you, Jesse?
Jake is hands down by far better with social media than I am. Much more active. Yes, he sucks. I'm not good at it, partly because I don't want to be good at it. I have them. I'm not against them, but I don't know. I guess more so personality. I just never really got into being. I mean, I have posts and things, and if there's something I feel strongly about, like I'll throw it up there. But I'm definitely not very. There's definitely probably huge gaps between my posts. So yeah, I don't know if I have a preference. I'm definitely much more of a window shopper. Like I just like reading the tweets. I like looking at the, the posts and the videos and stuff. But I wouldn't say I'm an active, active social media, poster or anything like that. So, like Jake said, I think it's something that it's kind of the way of the world now. But yeah, I'm not really good at it. So
yeah, nothing wrong with that. All right, so that's our 5 and 5. I like to end though with a final question for you guys. This is more for the youth players out there. What is one piece of advice that you want to give youth lacrosse players that are have aspirations to play at the professional level?
My advice, and it goes into the podcast, is enjoy being a kid and growing up, and play as many different sports as you can, just because it's going to take you much further. Being one trick pony and just being a lacrosse player is not the answer or end all be all to be a professional. A lot of the guys who play professional lacrosse play another sport growing up.
I'll go a little bit more specific lacrosse. I would say for the young lacrosse players out there, go to camp, go to lacrosse camp. Don't just join a team because you want to be on a team and play games. Learn how to play lacrosse. That would be number one. And then number two would be, I think, again, the more and more I see, just the longer I coach, is get a stick that you can throw and catch with. Because the amount of kids we see that create bad habits for themselves that you spend more time trying to undo rather than teach because they're compensating because of a poor stick, whether it's strung wrong or they don't take care of it. Again, I would say make sure you have a stick that, again, can do all the fundamental things and you're not compensating and giving up and creating bad habits for yourself, because those are a lot of the things as coaches that we look for that, again, don't bode well for guys. So I would say those two things. Go to camp, learn how to play lacrosse. Your stick is your most important thing that you can use while playing the game. So make sure you have one that you take care of, and then that works.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's kind of encompasses everything, like being an athlete, playing multiple sports so you don't get burnt out. And like you mentioned, Jesse, too, just being able to, go to these camps and like you said, be able to use the stick and understand how you can string it in a way that, suits your needs, because I know that is an issue that a lot of youth players do run into when they're first getting into the game. So good advice from both of you guys. Well, this has been great. I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have, and hopefully our listeners have enjoyed this too. Really appreciate you guys coming on, and best of luck in your respective seasons going forward.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, and let us know if you ever want us back.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and listen to Pro Lacrosse Talk.
No, definitely. I appreciate you guys coming on. Like I said, you're our first brothers that we've had on the podcast, and we're looking to do that more, and we'll definitely have you guys back on again, especially if you guys bring home the championship in your respective leagues. So we'll be rooting for you guys.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. All right, take care, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
So you just heard my conversation with Jake and Jesse Bernhardt. It was a pleasure talking to those guys. We wish them the best of luck as they head towards the final stretch of their lacrosse seasons. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, and let us know what you thought. We look forward to your feedback every week. But thank you guys for listening to another episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk.